Hello, my name is Nick Kastner, host and co-creator of the Commonwealth. In this video series, we've been learning about the past from those who experienced it. This is our 7th installment. If you've watched any others, you've seen us take about a half-hour conversation and edit it down to a handful of minutes. This time, we're going to show the conversation almost exactly how it went. We're talking with Phyllis Stone, an elder in the Lakota Tribe from the Rosebud Reservation. Phyllis shares her authentic perspective on how she supports her own tribe and what we can all do to promote equality in our society. Can you just kind of speak to your tribe and your involvement with it?
Several years ago, when I lived in another part of the state, I was on the Indian Commission.
Okay.
And so that brought me into the Indian politics. And that got me to know most of the Indian people in Nebraska. And the Indian people in Nebraska are urban Indians and way different from when I lived on the reservation to have that as our home. You know, our reservation politics is way different. But my involvement has been pretty much personal with like one-on-one relationship, and then also with the state. I've chosen not to go out of the state simply because I lecture for the humanities, and I speak about Lakota people and about our Indian heritage. And I feel like I owe Nebraska a lot for my children's education. I mean, my oldest son is the only Indian from Nebraska to be appointed to the Air Force Academy.
Wow.
Yeah. And my second son was in the Special Forces. And my daughter is a paralegal. So I owe their education to Nebraska. And so I feel like I need to stay in Nebraska and be available to the people in Nebraska.
You mentioned growing up on a reservation?
Yes.
Or spending which reservation and where at?
The Rosebud Sioux Reservation in South Dakota.
Okay.
The Rosebud Sioux, we are actually Sichungu Lakota. That's what I am. I'm Sichungu Lakota, but you know me as Rosebud Sioux.
Okay.
One time a neighbor of mine stopped me and she said, "What tribe are you?" She said, "Where did you live?" She said, "I can't find you on any map." And I said, "Probably because it's under Sioux and not under Lakota, because Lakota is our name and Sioux is the government's name." So.
Yeah, and why are those different from one another?
Because they didn't listen to us. Because they didn't ask us our name. They asked other people, who are those people? And they said Naduasiu, and they shortened it to Sioux. They didn't ask us, who are you? And we would have said, I am Lakota. So it was just a matter of not speaking to us, which they hardly ever did.
Yeah. How long did you live on that reservation?
Probably until I was in the 8th grade when I went away to an Indian mission school in another part of the state. 8th grade, I would have been 12, 13.
Okay.
But I have close ties to the reservation. I've always gone home. And then I moved home in 1990. I went back to college when I was 50. I got my degrees there at our tribal university. And people were so surprised that I went back to school there because of my children's educations. And I said, it's all in what you want to do in life. I said, I want to be with my people again. I want to hear our language again. And so I had to go back to school to learn how to talk again, how to think again like the Lakota people.
Wow.
And I got my teaching degree there.
Okay. And what subject was your teaching degree in?
It was secondary education. So it was, but I ended up teaching 6th graders. Okay. So I didn't even use that degree. I taught 6th graders.
Yeah.
Crazy. And then I taught mental health to college. In the college there, I was an adjunct professor,
Wow.
which was very different.
Yeah, I can.
I was a pioneer. Isn't that cool? I was a pioneer. I mean, they had never had the communication classes at the time. This was way back in the 90s. Um, they hadn't had that. And we linked up with Denver University, and they had a classroom there of kids, people, adults. And I had a classroom of adults, and I had medicine people with me, the medicine men and the medicine women. And they could ask questions. I could ask questions. My students could ask questions. It was very good. So,
Oh.
like I said, I was a pioneer. It's the first time we'd ever done that.
And so I was teaching mental health on the reservation, like at the
Yeah,
same college you went to
like
school.
how do we deal with it on the reservation?
Okay.
Yeah.
And what were your findings? You mentioned that you were a pioneer in this field. What were like big takeaways from the program?
The takeaways were that we are so different. We are so different simply because we pray. We actually pray to Tunkashila, and Tunkashila is the creator. It's the same God everybody else has, but most of us pray all day long. Not just once a week on Sunday. We pray all day long. People don't realize that whenever you're saying something to Tunkashila, to the creator, you're praying. And that's what we do. And that's what helped the people with the mental health, especially the alcoholics. Lots of alcoholism on the reservation. And a lot of them would go into our ceremonies and sing and pray and help themselves in our ceremonies and come out non-drinking.
Wow.
It might take a couple, 3 years. It would take probably as long as it would take in the non-Indian life,
Mm-hmm.
probably. But then it would make the Indian people go back to our way of thinking.
Wow.
It's very different.
Yeah. Yes. Can you elaborate on what you mean by your way of thinking?
We have different you would call them qualities in life. We are striving continually throughout life to attain generosity, to attain patience, and to attain fortitude, putting up with things, to attain strength. And it's just something that's built within our life all day long, all year long. And other people tend not to do that, and they tend not to think that. They are a very linear type thinking, and they think of what's on the paper. We go beyond that paper.
Hmm.
When I was teaching the Lakota language here at the Indian Center, one of the chairmen at the university asked me if I would teach our language there at the university. And I said, probably not. And he said, why not? I said, because you people tend to put everybody in little boxes, and I don't fit in a box very well. So I probably not. And he said, well, a contract is here waiting for you anytime you change your mind if you would teach a class. I would welcome teaching a class to people, but then I would have to have the supervisors, constantly telling me, you need to do this, you need to do that, and we don't do things like that. We do what's necessary, but we don't do it according to what they want us to do. I'm sorry, I'm saying we and they. And it's actually not like that, because I have learned, and some of us don't learn, but I have learned to put our two lives together. But our Lakota-ness comes out on top, of course, but I've learned to put our two lives together so that I can live. I can live in this society. But I can put up with it better, I think, because I pray.
What challenges come about when you go to try to put those two lives together?
The challenges would come with other people's ways. I have to constantly try to fit in to other people's thinking. And that can be a challenge sometimes. I had a great mentor, Lakshi, which means Uncle Albert Whitehat, had a great mentor. And he was always telling me there's constantly tests, Tansha, that's niece. There's constantly tests. You are going to be challenged all the time, but just pray, just meet them. And I have tried to do that. It's been very worthwhile.
Do you still face those challenges the same amount today as when you first left the reservation?
No, not at all. Not at all. It was really, really hard initially. It was really hard. I grew up on the reservation, and we would have to do shopping in Nebraska, in Valentine, which is like 40 miles away, but with a lot of stores. And the stores on the reservation are so totally out of this world with their pricing. And or to other off the reservation towns, we would go shopping. And it's so racist. So it was so racist. It's gotten kind of subtle anymore, but it's still there. I think I think non-Indian people can say, oh no, we don't see any racism. They may not be able to see it, but we can feel it. Mm-hmm. We can feel it. So all this Black Lives Matter stuff,
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, because we have been like that since those invaders came in 1492.
It was more overtly like in your face than it is today?
Yes. Somebody made a comment when I was on the Indian Commission about how he had to deal only with the city of Lincoln, and somebody else had to deal with the city of Omaha, and they had three different ones for the three different reservations. He said, and Phyllis has the rest of the state. And I said, it can be so racist. It can be so racist at home. And he said, that's because there's many of you. And unfortunately, the non-Indian people are afraid of us. They are afraid we're going to take everything back. We're going to go on, quote unquote, a warpath. And we're going to take everything back. So they are afraid of us. And there's many of you. But here in Lincoln, there are not that many. So you can get along better than you can at home. You don't have to constantly have this racism, on your shoulder.
Yeah. What is your long-term hope for Lakota culture in Nebraska?
That we're at least recognized. We're not even recognized.
What does that recognition look like, or lack of recognition?
It looks like somebody, even though they are Indian, a Native person, being appointed to high-paying jobs, being appointed to different things that only non-Indians are appointed to, being run for office. An Indian person hardly ever gets to run for office. I can think of only one, Senator Tom Brewer from Pine Ridge. Well, he's Pine Ridge. I don't know where he lives. Maybe he lives in Oglala.
Or like Rushville area, isn't that?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, that's Oglala. He's the only one that's run for office, and he met a lot of challenges when he was running, because they always bring up the fact he has such a stellar career anyway. He's done so many things, and there's not many of us who have been able to do that. My Hunka son, my adopted son, just made the comment not too long ago about my warrior spirit, and how my granddaughter has picked that up from me in, I can do that. I can do that. No matter what it is, hey, I can do it. And Tom has been able to do that, get that across. And people, he's almost an overwhelming presence, and people are not going to bump up against him. There's not very many of us like that. I know too many who have good records, but they're not listened to.
Interesting. So what can the average person do to help move that in the right direction? Like an average non-Native American person. And I also acknowledge that the question is also difficult because it's such a complicated issue that there's not, like, if it was a simple solution, it would probably already
would have been done. Right.
Yes, exactly.
I think just the plain acceptance of us, no matter, just acceptance. Like, I am accepted here where I live, with my neighbors. I'm just accepted. But I think it's because I insist on different things being done for me because it's done for everybody else. And too many people are quiet and timid and don't speak up like I do. But I lecture for the humanities, and I've gone all over Nebraska lecturing, and I'm a teacher, and as a teacher, you learn to speak up for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just acceptance would be a great door to go through.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing, Phyllis. You at the start mentioned that the politics of tribes across Nebraska are very different than when you're on the reservation. How so?
Because the tribes in Nebraska, and probably the tribes in South Dakota, also have to go against or meet with non-Indian policy all the time. And they have to try to make it fit, just like Chairman Fraser, the Cheyenne River Sioux, he shut off the reservation immediately with this virus, would not allow anybody to come in, just would not allow that. Well, he'd let them pass through. He'd have checkpoints and let them pass through or whatever, but he wouldn't let them come in and stay. It's so cool because he had only 4 cases of this virus on that reservation. So cool.
Mm-hmm.
If only, and he got a lot of stuff from the governor, that Governor Nelm from South Dakota, about opening the reservation up. But she wanted it opened up primarily to let the pipeline people go through whenever they wanted.
So you went back to school at 50 to be a teacher. What was your profession before then?
I stayed at home.
Okay.
I was a stay-at-home mom throughout my life. My grandma told me many, many years ago, Phyllis Rose, when you get married and have children, they are your life. They are your career. Not going to school, not working, you stay home with your children. I did what Grandma said. I stayed home with my children. And when my baby went away to college, she went to Notre Dame. When my baby went away to college, then I started making plans to go back to school.
And then what made you decide to go back to school?
Primarily, I wanted to have a career now. And I've always loved learning. I think it's very important to learn. Education is our number one thing for everybody, for everybody. And I just wanted to further my education. I just wanted to learn more. And then I decided I wanted to learn at a tribal university so that I could be close to our people again.
Okay. And then what was it like? I assume the majority of the students were a lot younger than yourself. Is that a fair assumption?
I made very good friends with the teachers.
Okay.
I was friends with the kids, with the other students, but primarily I was very good friends with the teachers because they were my age.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but I had a good time. an easy time. Not well, a pretty easy time. It was crazy because I went totally against what my grandma said. I went back to school. I was working for the vice president of the university from 8 to 12, and then I went to school from 1 to 10 at night. And then during the year, I got my granddaughter. My daughter didn't want her. She was young and didn't want her, and I got my granddaughter. So I had this tiny baby at 2 months old to take care of, besides going to school and going to work. But I did it, so when I got my degrees, my granddaughter came with me because she helped me earn my degree. And I had them give my diplomas to her.
Wow.
Because she helped.
Yeah. And it's setting a fantastic example for her.
Right.
Well.
Right. To go on. Yes.
Yeah. All right, Phyllis. Well, the last thing I have for you, Phyllis, if you wouldn't mind waving at the camera, just like as a hello.
Hi, hello. And I just do want to say how important education is. My children would not have been able to do what they do if they hadn't been well educated. And my granddaughter, education is what we need. Not only the non-Indian people, but the Indian people especially.
Phyllis is currently in isolation due to COVID-19. If you would like to send her a note, please leave a message in the comments section. We'll compile a list of all of them to send over to Phyllis. Tap the thumbs up and share button to support our channel. If you text the keyword COMMON to 31996, we'll text you a link when new episodes drop.